Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Wine. Welcome back to art class. Today we will be working on cutting our shapes for our Gustav Klimt collage. So before we start, let's zoom in and take a little bit closer look at some of the shapes that we see in Klimt's work. When I look at Klimt's work, I notice that I see circles, I see some ovals, I also see some super skinny rectangles and some triangles. So today, as you are considering what shapes to cut, you want to think about keeping your shapes very, very simple. So the best shapes for us to choose today are either going to be squares or rectangles or triangles or circles. Once you have decided which shapes you will choose, make sure that you have your 4 colors. You should have 4 colors, 2 metallic and 2 plain colors. And then out of all of these shapes, you're just going to be selecting 2 shapes. Now, if you want to do circles, circles are the trickiest shapes to cut out. So to help you, if you want to draw circles, I can give you some circle templates. And then you want to make sure that you are drawing and cutting out a large, a medium, and a small circle from each of your sheets of paper. So that's a small, medium, and large of your metallic colors and a small, medium, and large of your plain colors. So if I were going to use my template, I might not need circles that are quite this big. But I also don't want to be using circles that are teeny, teeny, tiny. So I might come in here and I might say, with my template, maybe I want to draw a big circle. And I don't want to waste paper because I want to be able to cut out as many shapes as possible. Then maybe I do a medium circle. And then I want to do one that's a little bit smaller than that. So maybe I'll come and I'll choose one of these small circles. And I want to make sure once I've drawn a big, a medium, and a small, that I do that on all of the papers that I've selected. Then, once I'm ready to cut those out, what I like to do when I'm cutting circles is I like to start by just trimming off the pieces. Then I take the circles and I simply cut them apart. Now I'm not fighting with a big sheet of paper. Once I've done that, it's pretty simple. If I line up my scissors right along the edge, and if I just turn the paper, then I can cut those circles out. But do keep in mind that circles are probably the trickiest shape to cut. And since you get a choice, if you know that cutting is not your best thing, and if you know that you really struggle with cutting curved shapes, you don't have to choose circles. You could certainly choose shapes that would be a lot easier for you to cut out. But if you want to choose circles, that is how I recommend doing it. And then again, you would need your circles cut out from each one of your different sheets of paper. The other choices that I have, square, rectangle, and triangle, are much easier to cut. Let's say I wanted to do squares. I don't even really need to draw squares on my paper. I can take my paper and I know if I use this corner is already a square. So I could just cut over. Then I know that a square is 4 sides all the same. So I have to have this side and this side the same size. So there's my large square. Then I can use this corner, and I know my medium square needs to be a little bit shorter, so I can just do medium. Same thing, I'm just gonna cut over. I'm gonna use this corner, and now I know that this side and this side need to be the same, so I can't do that. That would look more like a rectangle. That would be too long. I have to try to get them the same. There's my medium square, and now I need a small square. So same thing, I'm just gonna cut over and cut up. Okay, and then I'm gonna save this paper because if I have time, I can go back and cut out more shapes. So if I were doing squares, same thing, I would make sure that I have my squares included on the other sheets of paper. Cutting rectangles is very, very similar to cutting squares. I would start with this existing corner, but now I know I need a long side and a short side. So I don't want to make it humongous like a square. I can cut this off, and now I have a rectangle. Then same thing. I could come over here, and I'm going to cut a rectangle that's a little bit shorter. And now I need a small rectangle. I could come in here and cut a very small rectangle. And then once I have a big, a medium, and a small cut with this paper, then I would cut it out of the other papers as well. So far we know how to cut out squares, rectangles, and circles. That leaves me with triangles. And triangles are also really, really easy to cut out from paper. Again, I like to think of the sides that I already have. So if I already have a flat side on the bottom, I can start on the corner and I can cut a big triangle. Then I can go right beside it and I can cut out a medium triangle. I don't want it to be quite as tall. Make sure I cut all the way through so that I cut it off. And then here's a trick. Look at this point. I can just flip this paper over and I can cut off the tip and I have a small triangle. So I've cut a big, a medium, and a small triangle. And then I would have to cut my triangle out of all of my colors. So hopefully these shortcuts will help you cut your shapes quickly. Remember, you're not doing all 4 shapes. You're choosing just 2. Whichever 2 you want to cut them out of all of the paper and make sure you're cutting at least a large, a medium, and a small. Make sure that you save all of your pieces, and next week we're going to start to put those together. I hope you have a wonderful week, and until next time, keep on creating.